I'm Jeremy, and today I'll take a look at a dice game by the name of Café Fatal. This is designed by Brett Gilbert and Trevor Benjamin. It is put out by Zoc. It's a 2017 release, and it comes in a multilingual edition. This has 4 languages: German, French, English, and Italian in it. The box says that the game lasts about 30 minutes. In my experiences, it's closer to about 15 minutes, and it's for 2 to 5 players, ages 8 and up. And it is a dice rolling game where players are going to be playing patrons at a cafe, trying to consume the most food, with the catch being, I guess, that the player who consumes the most food is going to eat for free. Let me take a few minutes to show you how the game works, and I'll come back and let you know what I think about it. So Café Fatal is a dice rolling game for 2 to 5 players. I should note that the manual says 3 to 5 players, but it actually is for 2 to 5 players. There's a 2-player setup right there, in which players are going to be competing to try to collect the best goods from a restaurant, and in order to have the most points, the idea being that the player collects the most points will be able to eat free. So in order to do that, they're going to be collecting goods of these 3 types, so cheese slices, pizza slices, and pie slices. And you can see here that an individual slice of each of these is worth only a few points, but a whole pizza, which is going to, or cheese wheel or pie, which is going to be 5 slices, is going to be worth more points. So basically, it'll double the points for those tiles. And what you're going to do is you're going to set up this grid of tiles according to the number of players, and so there's a variable setup. One thing I don't like is that on this setup, you can see here, this is a really small manual as it is, and the setup is very tiny on here. You have to kind of squint to see which die faces should go where when you're setting up the board. But in any case, what you'll do each round is you'll put one of these pieces from this bag onto each of these squares, including if there are ones left over from the previous round, so they'll build up over time. Then you'll roll 2 dice, and here I rolled a 3 and a 3, so the space here marked with a 3 is going to get 2 more pieces onto it, so it now has 3 pieces of cheese. And then in turn order, what's going to happen is each player is going to be given 6 dice in a color, and they'll roll their 6 dice. And then they'll sort of sort them into the different values that they've rolled, and they'll have to choose to place onto one of these areas. So maybe this player wants these 3 cheeses, so they might choose to place on that square. So even though this says 3 on here, once you've done your setup, you don't need to worry about those numbers anymore. This player is going to take all of their dice of one of their values and place it onto this space. So they could take both of their 4s, both of their 6s, or their 1 or their 3. So any one value could get placed there. So let's just say they place both 4s there. They're trying to compete for those slices there. Then the next player will roll and do the same thing. So they have 2 1s, 2 4s, 2 2s. So maybe they want to go after these high value slices here. So, you know, because these pie slices are going to be worth 5 points each. So maybe this player would choose to put both of their 2s there. And then this player would roll, and so on. So again, like I said, this is going to go from 2 to 5 players. And the board will be bigger or smaller depending on the number of players. So this player rolled like this, and maybe they decide they want to compete for those cheese slices here. So they would put their dice on here. And so these are small dice, but this is why they're small. You have to fit a lot of stuff on some of these tiles sometimes. This player will roll again, and now they have a dilemma. So because they've already placed these 4 here, their placement options are such. If they want to place 4s again, they have to add it to the tile that they've already placed on. If they want to place one of their other values, let's say their 1s or their 5s, they have to place it on a tile that's horizontally or vertically adjacent to the tiles where they've already placed. So they could place their 1 here, here, or here, their 5s here, here, or here, or their 4 they could add to that tile. So since they're trying to compete for that, they might choose to place their 4s there. Then the next player will go, and again they're up here by themselves, so maybe they'll just try to grab that pizza with 1 die. Then it'll be this player's turn. They'll roll again. Now they have not rolled a 3, so they can't add anything to this tile. You can only add the same value that you've rolled. So they have to add their 4, 5, or 6 to one of these adjacent tiles. Maybe they'll put their 6 on there. And it'll just keep going like this until all the players have placed all their dice. If one of the players runs out of dice, they'll just sit out for the rest of the round. Maybe this player would place their 1 here. You know, oh, when I placed this 2 here, that would have had to have gone here unless I accidentally flipped that. So here we have a 2, 2, 4. Let's just say they placed their 4. This player rolls. They have a 2 and a 4. maybe they would choose, so they can't place where they've already placed, so maybe they would choose to place their 4 on that one. Then it's back to the orange player. They have a 4 and a 2. They probably want to lock down those. And then a 6 and a 4 for this player. So they could place another 4 on here, but maybe they would choose to place a 6 here. This player rolls their last die. They get a 1, so it could go on to a new tile. They were hoping to go here, but I should note that in the case of a tie, these players, if they each had 1 die, the higher value die would win. So they would probably choose to maybe put that over here. If it was a tie, let's say they chose to place here, we'll just have them do that. I'll show you how that resolves in a moment. So this player has 1 die left. They roll a 1. Oh, well, now it's not a tie. That would mean they're going to get that. And this player rolls, they get 5, so they could place on another tile to redo this. So now you'll just evaluate each one of these various things. So this player would get this one, because they're the only person there, and so on, and so on, and so on. So this player would get those 4, because they're all uncontested. Here the blue gets these 2, because they're uncontested. This one here, the orange is beating the blue, 2 to 1. So they would get that. Blue gets nothing. If they were tied here, 1 to 1, with both players with 1 die of value number 1, then then neither player would get it in the case of a total tie. If it was a tie like this, let's say, where the orange player had a 4 to the blue player's 1, the orange player would break it because they have the higher value. Then here, the orange player would get these 3 slices. Again, the blue player had a sort of bad round and would only end up with their 1. So now what will happen is players will tally up their scores. So this player here would have 4 points. Each one of these is worth 1 point. But if they got a 5th one, this would become worth 10 points. This player here has 6 points. This is 1. This is 5. And this player has 2, 4, 9, 10 points. So this player is ahead. If no player has reached 40 points, you would play another round. Like I said, you're going to put a tile onto every space again and then roll and add 2 additional tiles. These spaces here will build up. These pieces will carry over. They'll still get new tiles. And if a player hits 40 at the end of a round, then you will simply stop playing and tally up to see who has the most points. The player who has the most points is going to be the winner. Okay, so that is Café Fatal. And this is a relatively light dice game. It's certainly one where you could win or lose based on your luck. And I think it's going to be heavily compared to a recent dice game, which has been very popular by the name of Las Vegas, or Vegas, depending on where you live. And that is similarly a dice game where players are going to be rolling dice and trying to place them onto cards, or I guess tiles, to get cards that are worth money. It has a gambling theme to it. And in that game, I feel like you have a little bit more control about what you're going to be doing with your given dice. I mean, there are bad rolls in that game, but in that game, you have some interesting things that could happen. For example, in that game, there's a tie rule that if 2 players tie for the number of dice on a given tile, neither of them get it, and the next player in line would get it. So that's something that I think adds a real element of gambling and press your luck to that game that's not exactly present here. Here it's more of a thinky thing in that when you place your first dice in this game, you're going to be locking yourself into a certain section of the board. If you want to get 1 tile that's on one side of the board and 1 tile that's on the other side of the board, you're going to have a hard time doing that because you could only place subsequent rolled dice orthogonally adjacent to where you've placed before. So it's a slightly different puzzle than that. I've still enjoyed my plays of this. We've played it with 3 players and we've played it with 4 players so far. But at the same time, I think that generally speaking, I would go for Las Vegas over this. This seems to end very quickly. It's a quicker game than Las Vegas, which I do enjoy, considering it's really just a matter of rolling dice in either games. Generally speaking, I would say that it lasts about 3 rounds if somebody's lucky, 4 rounds if nobody was particularly lucky. So, and each round takes maybe a minute or 2 to resolve. So the box's estimate of 30 minutes seems way off to me. I can't imagine this game lasting 30 minutes. I don't think I would like it if it lasted 30 minutes. So for the 15 minutes that it really takes to play, it's a nice light game. Its only real issue is that I think that, first of all, Las Vegas exists, and that is probably for most gamers going to be a more enjoyable game. And second of all, because of the scoring conditions that a player wins at 40 points, that could come extremely quickly. the pie slices that you could collect. If you collect a whole set of those, which is only 5 tiles, you could get 50 points. And depending on the variable setup of the game, those 5 tiles could come out in the first round or two. So somebody could just really, get lucky with their dice rolls, be able to capture several of those immediately, and win the game almost after 2 rounds. And that's something that happened when we played already. So again, other players could try to impede that, but at the same time, you could, because let's say you rolled a 4 and you're trying to contest a space with another player, unless you roll more 4s, and there's no way to modify what you roll. Unless you roll more 4s on your subsequent rolls, you're never going to be able to contest that space, really. So it becomes a little bit of bashing the leader, making sure that nobody gets the 5th piece to a given pie, which in a game of this length and of this weight is fine and it's funny and people enjoy that. But at the same time, it's somewhat less strategic than even something that is pretty light like Las Vegas. So I think if players know that going into this is a nice light dice game, very interactive, that people will enjoy. But it has, I think, there's an elephant in the room, which is, Rudiger Doran's very excellent filler game, Las Vegas. So those are my thoughts on Café Fatal, and thanks for watching.